All right, double stops, example number 1. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing double stops out of common chord shapes. So this tune starts in G, so I'm visualizing a G here in 3rd position. We also have B flats in this tune, so I'm visualizing a B flat. That might look like a strange B flat to you, but if you visualize the open G chord and then move it up to B flat, pulling those open strings along with it, not so weird. Next chord is C. I'm going to my closest C. And the last chord we're going to need is D. And I'm going to my closest D. That's a C chord that I've moved up and barred across for the open strings. So all of my double stops are coming out of visualizing these shapes. And I try to keep all these shapes, around the same position or close, so I'm not jumping around the neck. As far as the right hand goes, with these double stops, as a general rule, if there's 2 notes being played, I'm doing it with the ring and middle finger and popping those strings. If there's single notes being played, I'm probably doing it with the pick. So there are times when I'm playing pick and middle finger together. Okay, and sometimes I break these rules, but for the most part, 90% of the time, that's what I'm doing down here. As far as the embellishment goes of these chords, I'm using some half-step approaches to different pieces of the chord. So, for instance, on this G chord, if I take these 2 notes, I could approach the bottom or the highest one from a half-step underneath, or I could approach the bottom one from a half-step underneath. The other approaches I'm using are pedal tones, so I'm keeping one note of the double stop stationary while I move another note around. Okay, so let's take a look at this example and see how all these things are kind of fitting together. Over the G, hammering onto the 7. So there's an example of that pedal tone being used. You have this high G on top that's sustaining. Here's another pedal tone, basically the same lick, but an octave lower. Okay, now I'm going to be approaching this double stop from a half step underneath. Doing the same with the next double stop. Next one. And then I'm anticipating this B flat chord. Okay, and for those top 2 notes, I'm imagining a G chord like this. Just moved up to B flat. So that's where these come from. Now I'm out of our C chord shape. There's a pedal tune on the bottom for you. Back to G. I'm going to do a little bend release on this double stop. Over to the B flat. That little pattern has come up before in this whole chorus, and it's a great pattern. And I'm approaching this bottom note of the double stop from a whole step underneath and walking into it chromatically. Coming back down to the low note of the double stop and going back and forth in and out of the chord tone. So that's the interval of a 6 being played on strings right next to each other over the C. And there's our familiar C7 shape. Pretty close to this one. I kind of jumped shapes on you. But into our D. This bottom voicing here, you've probably done a million times when you've played a C chord with the fifth on the bottom. That's where I'm getting that from. And then I'm going to rake into my flat third of G, landing on the root. Okay, so let's start this from the beginning. I'll do it in time, really slowly.